So lovely to connect to you again, Dia. It is such a lovely time. Always talking to you. I think we end up talking a lot more than the interview, and that is the beauty of it because it's always a conversation and not just an interview with you. Uh,
As it should be, Manju.
yes, yes, I'm happy.
Always.
Yeah, so Bheed, of course, we've all been through the pandemic. We've all been through the horrors of it. Of course, Dubai has been a different experience. India has been a different experience. And the one image that we all, I think, carry in our hearts with great pain is this entire exodus of people walking home. And this whole, and it's something that you couldn't avoid. You had to just watch it and let it, affect you, sink into your being. Um, and I believe that when the script was given to you, you broke down.
Yeah, naturally so. I mean, I was so deeply moved by like, at the opening sequence itself, I was bawling. And by the time I was done reading the script,
Mm.
I remember letting out a huge sigh and thinking to myself, how does this man do it? How is it that Anubhav Sinha finds in him the ability to so empathetically, so masterfully, so honestly weave a narrative like this and tell it like it is and do it with such ease, such effortlessness. It's remarkable. I really think he's found his voice
Mm.
and he's using it so well.
Yeah.
So well.
And such a relevant film that doesn't let you forget what we've also been through. Because now things look normal, but what we've been through as an entire world has not been an easy. It's like a war. It's like going through a war situation, or
Yeah.
probably worse.
I think what's important about Bheed, Manju, is that firstly, it reflects back on an aspect of the lockdown that didn't really get mainstream focus,
Hmm.
right? The images that have haunted us are images that we were made privy to through social media.
Yeah, true.
It wasn't really mainstream news networks that were carrying those images or even talking about or focusing on those stories.
Right.
It was independent journalists and independent journalism that brought those stories to the fore. So that's one. Two, um, a lot of the layers within the crisis, right? The story itself has the subplots and the layers within it.
Hmm.
Caste, one of them.
Right. Right.
Such a huge divider in our country and in our society.
Right.
Something that unless you have as an individual experienced or been through, you can't really understand. I mean, we read about the horrors of honor killings. We read about the horrors of caste-based violence.
Hmm.
We all know which sections of society are the people who are cleaning our drains
Right.
with absolute lack of,
Empathy.
any kind of infrastructure, empathy, dignity to
Hmm.
support that livelihood, right?
Yeah.
And I think those realities are the realities that we continue to live with.
Hmm.
And I think what the film really does for us is to kind of, shift the lens a little and ask us and compel us to think about ourselves as human beings first before we think of ourselves as anything else.
Right.
And even for a character that I played in the story, who at the at the face of it seems empowered, seems
Hmm.
woke, seems like the one with the with the potential privilege or power or whatever.
Hmm.
And in a moment of reckoning, you discover that she lacks basic empathy. She lacks,
Yeah.
there is such a strong sense of entitlement that comes with privilege
Right.
that she has, that she's not even conscious of.
Yes.
Because if
That
you
that is the danger. That is the danger.
yeah, and because her perception of herself would be that I am a single mother trying to get to my child. I have a crisis of my own. So my problem is just as big or bigger than everything else,
Hmm.
right? But and I think we're all surrounded by people like that, right? We have people like this as our neighbors. We have people like this as our colleagues, our bosses, whatever.
Also,
Have
they're
you?
probably not necessarily against another, but they are for themselves.
Yes. Yes.
And therein
Yes.
lies the selfishness, which is naturally induced without knowledge of that selfishness.
Yes.
So,
Absolutely.
so my next question is social inequalities, and how do we fix this in this generation so that the next generation, the blow is either nullified or softened? What do we do?
Well, we need to be informed, we need to educate ourselves, and with that knowledge, we need to find the ways and actively make the choices that we need to. So, as an artist, I choose to be a part of storytelling that, you know, reduces or focuses on reducing inequities. As an individual, what kind of a parent am I at home? What kind of parents are we at home?
Hmm.
What kind of examples are we setting for our children?
Hmm.
uh, do
Yeah.
they see us play an equal part,
Hmm. Hmm.
in all aspects of life? Are they seeing gender equity at home?
Hmm.
And then, of course, helping our children cope with and navigate through life as they move forward, and help them recognize their own innate strengths, and not to minimize or undermine their abilities based on their gender, or for that matter amplify their abilities
Right,
because of
right. That's also. I
um,
watched you on in Rikta. I was there attending Rikta. I saw your session on stage where you spoke about your child and what you tell him to, what are the gratitude. I mean, it's something to the world that you're actually honing him to, a new kinds of thank yous to the world. So can you just mention it now, because I think this is an audience to
Sure,
also listen.
sure, I'd be happy to. So, I mean, I feel a very big driver of inequity in this world, I mean, that's scientifically proven as well, is climate change. It is widening the divide. It is, of course, disease and ill health has also widened the gaps.
Hmm.
COVID played a very big part in widening the gaps in gender equity,
Hmm.
and which is why I feel that we all need to raise better children for our planet, and not just leave a better planet for our children.
Hmm.
So that starts at home, it starts at a young age. So one of the things that I've drawn Avyan's consciousness and awareness to, right from the day he could eat on his own or was being fed solid meals, was, or even before he could say the words thank you, was to teach him to say thank you mama earth,
Hmm.
thank you water, thank you farmer,
Hmm.
thank you to the person who's cooked his meal, and
Hmm.
understand. So now when we go and we're driving to, say, a forest, and he sees fields, or even in a recent weekend trip, we were at a home, like a homestay, where there was a home farm, took him to the garden patch, showed him how the tomatoes were growing, the vegetables were growing,
Right.
introduced him to the lady who was farming the vegetables. So he knows, he has a concept in his mind that somebody is growing his food, that his food is grown on this planet, that the water, the air, and the food that comes to him every day comes from the earth, and he needs to be grateful for it. And even on, like, my screensaver on my phone is the planet,
Hmm.
and I ask him, what is this? And he says, Mama Earth.
So sweet. Right. So that brings me to another question. You played mother before you were a mother yourself, and now you played a mother after being a mom. Is there a difference? Is there more? I mean, I know it's a question to not us but us, but is there a difference? And is the empathy more real because of a lived
No,
experience?
Manju. Uh-uh. I used to say this before I had Abhiyan,
Hmm.
and I say it more emphatically now,
Hmm.
that if you are inherently a nurturer
Hmm.
and your maternal
Hmm.
instinct is strong,
Right.
you don't need to physically bear a child to experience that.
Absolutely. Hmm.
Right. And I think I felt the whole gamut of maternal emotions while I was, playing my part in Kafir, and just the way I bonded with Dishita,
Yes.
the kind of relationship we had and we continue to have was really solid. And yes, when you physically bear a child, there is a cellular shift. Your understanding of the world is more heightened. Your present moment awareness is more heightened. I feel more awake and alive in every moment that I'm around my children than I could possibly ever be. Of course, meditation does that for you. But when you're with children, it happens much, much more. For me, that has been my experience. And the other thing that has happened with me, I think the big shift is that all of my life choices are centered, uh, keeping my children in mind. Everything, whether it's a food preference or it's a travel plan or it's a work plan, whatever it is, the children are the center of it. Everything happens around them.
Right. Okay. We also will talk about the elderly who were when this entire exodus happened, and a lot of elderly who had house helps who were people from, I
Right.
mean, all of these people who had to migrate forcefully, and the fact that you did work with them too. So tell me about that, and how do we, again, is there a way to fix this at all? How do we get more empathetic as people post pandemic? Because have we learned our lessons?
Well, a lot of the people who live in my society are 80 plus. Many of them, whose children don't live with them. Their children live either overseas or in different cities. These people choose to live on their own. They want to be independent. They want to live on their own. And with, it's amazing to see that many of them drive,
Hmm.
many of them, are physically able to take care of themselves. And it's fantastic. But when the pandemic struck and we were locked in,
Hmm.
it was hard for them because they didn't have any house help and they didn't have anybody to kind of look out for them. And it really came upon us, to create systems that will facilitate not just protocols to ensure their safety and their health,
Hmm.
but also kind of make accessible the essentials that they needed every day.
Hmm.
And sometimes that included going to their homes and helping them clean up,
Right.
uh, which was perfectly fine. I mean, I guess that's what a crisis does, right? It compels your humanity and it makes you respond to it, and be of whatever help you can be to your neighbors and to everybody around you. But yes, it did really make me think about and wonder about all of those senior citizens trapped in their homes with no house help
Hmm.
and possibly no neighbors to take care of them.
Right.
And at that time, we were a part of some very, very important campaigns that kind of called to the conscience of people and kind of requested them to seek out elderly in their neighborhood or in their buildings or their residential societies and
Hmm.
help them if they could. It was also a wonderful time because you know, we baked cakes, we celebrated birthdays by standing at people's doorstep, holding their birthday cakes, making sure they didn't feel left out or alienated or isolated, because it was very trying on them, even from a mental health point of view, right? To be totally cut off.
Cut off and left alone. Yeah.
But Andrew, it really helped living where we do because we have a garden and we have a driveway.
Hmm.
So in turns and in batches, we allowed people, of course, to make sure they maintain safe distances. But we didn't have a single case of COVID in our co-op for 2 years. Not one.
Wow.
It was much later that some people got sick, but most people didn't. And it was amazing.
Also, it's a sense of community. It keeps your happy hormones, and they are the ones which fight any of those diseases that come in. And as a community, I think, as responsible communities, I think we nurture each other. uh,
Yeah.
right. Thank you very much for speaking to me, because I think I'm getting messages. So lovely to speak to you, and hope to speak to you in a longer interview later sometime, or when you come to Dubai. It'll be lovely to catch up again.
I look forward to it, Manju. Thank you so much. And thank you for watching Bheed.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.